Well, hello. I hope everyone's having a good day. I hope you're ready to learn some English words and phrases about tools. I'll explain why I chose this topic in just a little bit, but we'll get started in 34 seconds. Hopefully everything is working properly. It's good to see all of you. It's fun to say hi to all of you. I like it when I have time to actually say hi to everyone in the chat before we start. We'll get started in 20 seconds. Sounds like everything is working properly. Let me just get adjusted here. And we will start in 10, 9. I'm not going to count down. 7, 6, maybe I am. Who knows? 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson about tools. Tools are the things that we use as human beings to make things or to fix things. Tools are just really, really handy. I hope you have some small tools at home. Hopefully you at least have a screwdriver and a wrench and a hammer so that when something is broken or when you need to put something together, you have the tools that you need to do that. In this lesson, I will talk about the names of all the tools, the vocabulary that you need to know, but I'm also going to talk about what verbs you use with each of these tools. You know, when you use a screwdriver, you use it to tighten or loosen a screw. And so it's important not just to know the name of the tool, but also the actions that go with the tool. So welcome to this English lesson about tools and the verbs that go with them. Well, hey, how's everybody doing? I hope you're having a good time. Hello to all of the familiar faces in the chat. Lolly Lolly, know that. Arya, Rabast, Ho, Farabors, Madi, Key Park, Hockey, Freddie Wolf. Who did I say Lolly Lolly already? John Wedge, Ralph. It's good to see all of you. It's good to see all of you in the chat. Michael is here. Wanda Prado, Vitor, Denis. I'm sure Ruslan's in there somewhere. Good to see everybody. If I forgot your name, sorry about that. So a lesson about tools. And some of you know that my lesson ideas come from my life. So this past week I've been working. I'm not sure how well you can see that photo, but I've been working on putting pavers down by the front entrance of our house. So I'm about a third of the way. I hope to finish this today after the live stream. Right now, it's shady there till about 1 o'clock. That area is shady. So I hope to get it done while it's still shady. My son and I put down coarse stone, and then we're putting down a finer stone and then laying pavers on top of it. So I'll give you a picture of it when it's totally done. But for now, that is what I am working on. Anyways, some details. Please use the chat to have fun English conversations with each other. Please, if you consider membership, there is a join button below. You can click that and it will give you more information. And then please, as you're listening, try to think and picture not just the tool, but the action. So if I'm talking about a hammer, try to picture the action that's happening as well. Anyways, good to see all of you. 41 words in this lesson, 40 words. So we better get started. It'll take almost the full hour with questions. So here we go. Toolbox. I thought I would start with this one. A toolbox is a great thing to have. You can use it to store your tools. You can use it to keep your tools in the same place. I actually have multiple toolboxes. I don't use them very well though. Often when I use my tools, I forget to put them in the toolbox or put them back in the toolbox. But a toolbox is a very handy thing to have. It's very useful. You can even lock some of them. Anyways, I was saying I have multiples. I have one toolbox for my screwdrivers, another toolbox for wrenches. But as I said, I'm not that good at keeping my tools in the toolboxes. They're usually kind of left in the places where I most recently worked. But you would use a toolbox to keep your tools or to store your tools. A hammer. So I thought I'd start with one of the most obvious tools. A hammer is used to hammer things. So the noun and the verb are the same, or to hit things or to pound things. So if I have a nail, I can hammer the nail into a piece of wood. I can hit the nail into the piece of wood, or I can pound the nail. When you use pound, it kind of, you saw my arm go further. It's like you're really hitting the nail. But a hammer is a tool, and it actually has two ends, this type of hammer. The one end is used to hit a nail. The other end is used to pry a nail out after you put it in. Probably one of the most common tools. I hope all of you have a hammer somewhere. There's also something called a sledgehammer. Let me say that again, a sledgehammer. Sledgehammer. It's used to smash or pound things. You wouldn't use a sledgehammer to put in nails. It's just too big. A sledgehammer is very, very heavy, and a sledgehammer is used, for instance, you could pound a post into the ground. Notice I'm using two hands now. If I'm using a smaller hammer or a bigger sledgehammer, I'm definitely going to use two hands. You can use it to smash things. Let's say there's a wall in your house and you don't want it anymore. You could use a sledgehammer to smash that wall. You could use it to get rid of that wall. I actually have this, I just got this yesterday. This is a type of hammer, but it's called a rubber mallet. I need this to kind of help put the pavers in place, the patio stones that I'm putting down. So that is a mallet, kind of another word for a type of hammer. Jackhammer. So I've run a jackhammer before. A jackhammer is basically a mechanical hammer. It has an air line, if that's the type you're using, and it goes like, hopefully that's not too loud for you. A jackhammer is used to demolish or to break things. You would never build something with a jackhammer. You use a jackhammer, let's say you had a sidewalk and it was tilted and cracked. You might use a jackhammer to break the sidewalk or to demolish the sidewalk so that you can remove it. But a jackhammer is definitely, in English we would say, not for the faint of heart. It's very loud and it's very hard to control. I've used small jackhammers and large jackhammers in my life. A saw. So a saw can be used to saw something. You can saw a board in half, or you can cut a board in half. A saw is, of course, something, it's a piece of metal with all little jagged teeth, and it goes when you cut. So you can see this gentleman here. He is deciding to saw this board in half or to cut this board in half. Obviously, he needs it a certain length, so he's decided to cut the board in half. And then, of course, most of us just use a power saw. We sometimes call this a circular saw, and you use this to saw or to cut or to rip. So let me give you the difference between cut and rip. If I have a board and I go like this, that's to cut. But if I go this way along the long side of the board, that's to rip. You don't often rip a board with a handsaw. It takes a very long time. But mostly we would just use the verb to cut. Hey, Bob, can you cut me a piece of wood that is 130 centimeters long? Could you please cut me a piece of wood that is 3 feet long? By the way, those aren't the same. 130 centimeters isn't 3 feet. But yes, definitely a power saw or circular saw is used to cut things. A hacksaw. So we use this to saw and to cut as well. But usually we use a hacksaw to cut pipe or maybe to cut metal. You wouldn't use this to cut wood. The teeth are very, very tiny on a hacksaw. The only time I use a hacksaw is to cut pipe. So if you have a long pipe, I would use a hacksaw to cut the pipe in half. And of course, you can saw the pipe in half as well. And then a chainsaw. So a chainsaw, you pull it to start it. It's like vroom, 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 vroom. You use a chainsaw to chop down or to cut down trees or simply to cut things. You don't usually use it to cut wood or lumber. that, you don't have a piece of lumber and use a chainsaw. You use it usually outside, and you use it either to chop down a tree, to cut down a tree, or to cut logs. You don't use it for regular wood. Notice, even though it's not an axe, we still say to chop down. I'm going to use the chainsaw to chop down a tree. And then when the tree starts to fall, you're supposed to yell timber as the tree is falling down to warn people that the tree is falling. So we talked about this in the lesson about measurements a few weeks ago. This is either called a tape measure or a measuring tape. Both names are equally used, and you use it to measure things. So if I needed a piece of wood, I actually did this yesterday. Jen needed a piece of wood to attach to our market canopy, and it needed to be about 8 feet long. And so I used a tape measure to measure a piece of wood. I used a measuring tape to measure a piece of wood, and then I cut it so it was exactly the right length. A planer. I don't ever use one of these. This is used to plane or to smooth wood. So if you have a piece of wood and it's not perfectly smooth, you would use a planer to remove a really small slice of wood. So if there was a piece of wood like this, you would use a planer to remove the pieces that were a little bit too tall. You would use it to plane the wood or to smooth the wood. And then a screwdriver. This is probably next to the hammer. Hammer and screwdriver are probably the two most common tools. This is used to tighten a screw or to loosen a screw or simply to turn a screw. By the way, in English, we say righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So it's a little thing you can remember so you know which way to turn a screwdriver or a wrench. So righty-tighty means if you turn it to the right, the screw will get tighter. If you turn it to the left, it will get looser. So you use a screwdriver to tighten, to loosen, or to turn. You could even say you use it to put in screws. You could use the verb to put in. I'm going to use the screwdriver to put in some screws. That would be very common as well. But yes, I'm sure you have multiple screwdrivers. They have different tips. In my part of the world, we call this type of screwdriver a Phillips. We have Phillips and Flathead and Robertson. Those are the three most common kind. I think the Robertson screwdriver is very common in Canada. It's the square tip. But yes, screwdriver. And then wrench. A wrench is similar in the sense that you use it to tighten and loosen things, but you use it to tighten and loosen bolts and nuts. So you have a bolt and then you put a nut on the end and you turn the nut, and you can use a wrench to tighten that nut, or you can use it to loosen that nut as well. So you put one wrench on the bolt head, put the other wrench on the nut, and you turn it until it's super, super tight. My friend gave me a set of wrenches for my birthday this year. Very nice. I was very happy with that gift. Very cool. Hey, let's do some questions. They're not showing up on the screen. I'm not sure why. Let me just check something for a sec. There they are. Let me get the first question on the screen after I have a sip of water. Let's see here. Here we go from Denis. Wait, no, it's from Know That. My bad. Hello, Bob. Do you have a separate area for your tools, like a workshop with a workbench, vises, etc., where you store them? Or where do you usually keep them? Thanks, Bob. So I will make a video of this at some point. In my machine shed, what we also call the drive shed, that really big building close to the road where I have my tractors, I do have a workshop with workbenches. Now, my son also uses that. He runs a lawn mowing business, so he has all his tools and I have all my tools. We try not to get them mixed up. If I use his tools, I make sure I put them back. But yes, I definitely have a vise, an anvil, 3 workbenches. It's a very nice place to work. And that's where I try to keep all my tools. I try to keep them all there. From Denis, hello Bob. What's the weirdest tool you've ever used? What tools of your trade as a teacher might be useful in farming? So the weirdest tool I own is probably something called a gear puller. So a gear puller, it has like 3 arms, and you put it onto a pulley or gear, and then you tighten the other end and it pulls it off the shaft. It's a pretty technical description there. What tools? Anything that measures. So teachers use rulers and measuring tapes, and on the farm we use rulers and measuring tapes as well. From Ruslan, hello dear teacher Bob. How are you today? I'm good, Ruslan. What is your favorite toolkit brand? Have a sunny weekend, sir. So I have Mastercraft, I have Husky, I have Craftsman. It doesn't matter to me as long as it's not cheap. I don't like cheap tools. I tend to break cheap tools. So those are the name brands in Canada. I also have a DeWalt cordless drill. Very, very nice tool. From Young, hi Bob, did you ever build a tree house when you were a child with your father? Does Canada have this tradition like in the United States? I built a fort, or not like a fort and treehouse are similar. A fort's like a little fun place to play. My dad and I built a fort in the barn once above the area where we prepared feed for the cows. I had a little fort up there with a radio in it. But I did build a treehouse with my cousins when I was older. Is it a tradition? I don't know. If you have trees, you might build a tree fort at some point in time. But I wouldn't say it's a super common tradition. Many people do it, though. Yes, for sure. Lucas says, hey, Bob, Oktoberfest takes place again in over 1 month. Do you like it? Have you attended? I have not really. Like, I've been to an Ontario version. I have not been to Germany to experience it. From Aram, hi, Bob. Not only French teacher, but also wrench teacher. Are you familiar with the phrase bike shed when you over dispute unimportant details? No, I'm not familiar with that phrase at all. But yes, I am. I would like to say I'm handy with tools, but it's more, yeah, I'm okay. I get by with tools. From Madi, hello, Bob. I hope you're doing well as you seem to be. I am. Do you call them gadgets or tools? And what is the difference between them? So a tool is something like a screwdriver or a hammer or a wrench. A gadget is more, is a little more complex. Like when I talked about the gear puller, the tool I have to pull a gear or pulley, that's more of a gadget when it has moving parts and it does one specific task. I would say maybe, but usually tool. We usually do tool, use tool as the word. From Peter, good morning, Mr. Bob. How are you today? I'm very excited to watch your live stream today. Also, your topic is wonderful. No question. Think you have a nice day. I hope you do too. Let's see here. I don't know, William. How many tools do you have in your home? So we have tools in the house. We have a small set of tools in the house, you know, a small hammer, screwdrivers, those kinds of things. And then hundreds of tools. There are tools here from when my parents owned the farm. So there's just definitely tools everywhere. Possum Pibble says, hi, Bob. The bathroom light doesn't work. There is electricity in the house, but I think there is no electric current going to the bathroom light. How can I fix this? Safely. Fix it very, very safely. The first thing you should get is you should find something that detects whether there is electricity in the socket or outlet before you work on it. And then make sure you turn off the breaker or remove the fuse to that socket. And then I would just have a look. Once you know how to do it safely, make sure there's no electricity there. From Takagero, hello, dear teacher Bob. No questions today. Just want to say I really love sound effects done by you. I should work on them more. That's what I should do. I should take a class and become a professional sound effects creator. Maybe that's my future. Hey, we're going to get back to the lesson after I have a sip of water. It's funny because Kazar in the chat says, I'm positive that this is not live. It's just a pre-recorded video. No, it's not a pre-recorded video. In fact, if you look here, I'll show you. If you look here, it is currently 8:49. Oh, they won't stay on the screen. 8:49 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, August 16th, 2024. The Olympics ended last week. By the way, thanks to all of you from France for hosting the Olympics. Yeah, this is definitely live, Kazar. John Wedge says, gear pulley is very handy to take off bearings. Yes, I like that tool. It is a handy tool. Okay, let's get back to the lesson. Pipe wrench. So this is a wrench that's adjustable. You can spin part of it to open and close it, and you can use it to tighten pipes. When you put one pipe into a fitting, you'll use a pipe wrench to tighten that. So you use this once again to tighten or to loosen something. And in this case, a pipe wrench is used to tighten and loosen pipes. And I did forget to mention there is something called an adjustable wrench. I don't have a picture of that. That's a handy wrench to have as well, because you can open and close it so it's the right size. But a pipe wrench is used to tighten and to loosen pipes. A crowbar. So I think this has a lot of different names. I call it a crowbar. It's also called a pry bar. It is used to pry things. If you had two pieces of wood that were nailed together and you wanted to get them apart, you would try to put the end of the pry bar between them, and then you would pry. That's the English verb we use. You would move the bar and pop open or separate those two pieces of wood. A very handy tool to have. Generally, when it has the curved end, I call it a crowbar. If it's just a bar, like the one I showed you in my picture that's leaning against the wall, can we get back to that real fast? Let's see how fast. So you see that red-handled thing leaning against the wall? That's a pry bar, or what I would call a pry bar. Whoa, went too far. Bolt cutters. So you were asking about tools that teachers and farmers use. So at school, we have a set of bolt cutters in case a student forgets the combination to their lock, or if someone puts the wrong lock on a locker, we use a bolt cutter to cut the lock off. But generally, a bolt cutter is used to cut. Actually, you can cut wire, like metal wire, or bolts or locks with it. And we just simply use to cut. You might say to snip. You might use the bolt cutters to snip some wire, but definitely a handy tool to have. When you squeeze the end of the bolt cutter, it puts enormous pressure on where the end is closing. Like when you squeeze the one end, because of all the little lever mechanisms, it really cuts through a lot of stuff. Yes. A clamp. A clamp is used to clamp things or to hold things. So if you like making things out of wood and you need to glue them together, so you put glue, like you put glue on, and then you put the two pieces of wood together, you then need to clamp them as the glue dries. You put on a clamp to hold the wood together, or you can say you clamp the wood together. So very handy tool to have. You can see that you can spin the end and it closes and opens, or you could say it tightens and loosens as well. And this is a utility knife. Just in the chat, I see Kevin say, oh, I really thought it was pre-recorded too, but thank you anyway. You're awesome. Yes, it's definitely not pre-recorded. This is the real thing. Let's get back though. Oh, no, that says your students get the locks provided. They are provided, but sometimes students will bring their own. And then if the school doesn't own the lock, we can't figure out how to open it. If we own the lock, we have all the combinations. We look at the serial number. But yeah, a utility knife. So a utility knife is interesting. Generally, it has a retractable blade. So if you look at this utility knife, there's a little thing on top you can slide, and then the blade will go in and out. This is for safety. You use a utility knife to cut things, to carve things, to scrape things. There are a lot of uses for a utility knife. And then usually inside there's extra blades. So if you open it up, there's a little storage compartment where you can have extra blades. But a utility knife is super handy. You can use it to cut rope. You can use it to cut little zip ties off of things. You can use it for many, many things. And usually it has a retractable blade for safety. So when you're done using it, you can put the blade back inside, and then no one will injure themselves. Safety glasses, hearing protection, work gloves. These are all things that we wear to protect ourselves. So when you are doing any kind of work, you want to protect your eyes. You will wear goggles, safety goggles, or safety glasses. In fact, on this screen, on the white background, those are safety goggles. And on the blue background, I would call these safety glasses. These are things we wear to protect our eyes. When you're cutting or grinding or snipping, things can fly at your face, and you don't want something to go in your eye. So you wear safety glasses to protect your eyes. Similarly, when you are working with different kinds of tools, power tools in particular, it can be very loud, and you will wear some kind of hearing protection. I don't have mine here. I wear the little tiny ones that you can put in your ear, but you can also wear these large ones. You wear these to protect your hearing. So you wear these to protect your eyes and your eyesight. You wear these to protect your, not really your ears, but your hearing. You use those to protect your hearing, because sometimes when you're cutting a piece of wood with a power saw, it's so loud it can damage or hurt your ears. And then work gloves. I always wear work gloves. When I was younger, I didn't, but it's very common if you see me working on something to see me wearing safety glasses. Sometimes I'm just wearing my reading glasses as safety glasses because it's hard for me to see close up. I'm usually wearing some kind of hearing protection if it's loud, and then gloves, because the last thing I want to have happen is I don't want to hurt my hands while I'm working on something. I do not enjoy that. So you need to protect yourself. I also wear knee pads right now when I'm laying pavers, but I don't have a picture of those. A square. So a square is used to square things up. What I mean by this is if you have a piece of wood and another piece of wood, where they come together, you want this to be a 90-degree angle sometimes. And in order to do that, you use what's called a square. So you put a square in the corner, and then you know it's a perfect 90-degree angle, and then you can nail it or screw it together. We also use a square to mark a piece of wood before we cut it. So if I have a piece of wood, I can lay the square across and then draw a line so that I can make sure I'm creating a 90-degree cut. So I should have added that. You can use a square to square up two pieces of wood, or to mark a piece of wood with a pencil so you know where to cut it. Pliers, very handy. This set of pliers is actually called needle nose pliers. You use these to squeeze, to twist, to tighten, to loosen, to cut. Pliers are very, very handy. I love a good pair of pliers. You can use a pair of pliers like this to squeeze something together. So the ends come, you can squeeze something together. You can twist something with them. You can, if you have two wires, you can put the pliers on and then you can twist the wires. You can tighten something, you can loosen. And then there's actually a tiny little, this pair of pliers has a little cutting area right at the base of most pairs of pliers. You can cut string or wire. Pliers, very, very handy. And similar to scissors, it's pliers. We always use the plural. So you can have a pair of scissors, a pair of pliers. etc., etc. And a pair of pruners, by the way. We use pruners to prune, to snip, and to cut. And we use these for plants. Jen uses pruners to cut flowers. I use pruners to prune my trees. You can use pruners to snip weeds off in the garden, although you should pull them out by the roots. But pruners look similar to pliers, but they are made like it's sharp. The edge of a pruner is very sharp. It's made to cut things, to snip things, to prune things. Very handy. Be careful when you use pruners. Wear gloves. Ratchet. So ratchets are cool. This ratchet has a socket on the end. You would put the socket onto a nut, and then a ratchet is neat because when you turn one way, it goes, and when you turn the other way, it tightens. I'm not making a very good ratchet sound. And then you can flip a little switch, and then it goes the opposite. Which way was I going before? I can't remember. But now it will loosen. So it has a mechanism inside that allows it to turn one way and then not the other way. Hopefully that made some sense. It is used in the same situation as a wrench, but sometimes it's just handier to use a ratchet to tighten or to loosen bolts and nuts. So again, you put a socket on the end. You find the right size socket. Maybe you need a 12 millimeter socket. You put it on the end of the ratchet. You use it to tighten and to loosen bolts. And then a chisel. A chisel is used for many things. You can use it to chisel, to carve, to chip. So for instance, if you had a block of wood and you wanted to turn it into an owl, you could use a chisel with a hammer or just by hand to kind of carve that wood. If you had a piece of stone, you could chip pieces of the stone off with a hammer and chisel to make it a different shape. So you can use the verb to chisel, to carve, to chip whenever you are using a chisel. Hey, let's do members only chat. Let me get a sip of water. Ralph says, now I understand the meaning of the gear in Ratchet and Clank. Oh yeah, there you go. For sure. William says, I like this class because I'm learning new tools. It's different to my country. New tools. Thanks for that, Bob. Yeah, no problem. Let me get the members only chat turned on. Where do we go here? And I just want to say hi to the 266 people who are currently watching. That is awesome. You do not need to leave. Members only chat is about 10 minutes long. If you are a member, you can ask a question directly in the chat and I will answer it. And I will also continue to answer tool related questions from the question form. Although this first one is not tool related, but I'll still put it up here. It says, let me see here. From Anakin, hi Bob, have a good day. Do you know what's the difference between cuisine and dish? So I use cuisine to talk about a certain type of food. Like, do you like French cuisine? And I don't use dish. Like dish, I would use more like, yeah, I don't use the word dish a lot. Like it's a yummy dish. Like, oh, my mom made stew and it was a yummy dish. That's how you would use that. But I don't often use the word dish, to be honest. Know that in the chat, members chat, when it comes to fixing things on your farm or in your house, which do you prefer to do, Bob? The ones in your house or on your farm? I think I like the farm ones better. There are things I like to do and things I don't like to do in the house and outside. I don't mind working with wood or pavers or stone or gravel. I don't mind doing electrical work. I understand electricity. I do not like doing plumbing, like pipes and water pressure. That doesn't interest me. Like I call a plumber if I have a problem with that. So definitely farm though. I like outside. I like fixing things. Like if Jen needs a new door on the chicken coop, I like that kind of work. I can do that. John Wedge, hello Bob. No question today. Just having fun with your sound effects. Awesome. Anna Takaha says, thank you for the helpful class. I'm listening to you while washing my plates. Very good. You're multitasking. Marwanto is here. Good to see you, Marwanto. Hello, he says. Wanda says, hi, Teacher Bob. Do you have special tools to fix your car? Thank you. That is another thing I do not really do myself. I will change windshield wipers. I will change headlights. But everything else I have done at a garage, including, like if I had a flat tire, I would put on a spare tire or get the tire fixed. But generally, I'm not, like I could learn how to do it, but it doesn't interest me. It's easier just to get it fixed by someone. John Wedge says, don't forget to give a thumbs up, folks. Yes, thank you for that, John. Lolly, do you allow your children to use your tools? Yes, but they know they are supposed to put the tool back, but we all sometimes forget to do that. So yes, they are allowed to use the tools. In fact, it's encouraged. I like it when kids learn to fix things. Know that says, have you ever had a project where after you started it, you reached the limits of your craftsmanship and had to call in a company/professional? Yes, actually, I installed a new stovetop probably over 10 years ago now. I removed the old stovetop. I found the breaker in the basement. I made sure the electricity was off, as I mentioned earlier. I removed the old stovetop. I installed a new one, and I did everything, but I still had an electrician come to check to make sure I did it right, because it's electrical. It's not gas or propane. And so I thought, and so he came and said everything was good, and he still charged me $50, but that was fine. It was worth knowing I had done it right. Freddie Wolf, Bob, I'm pretty sure you will soon have a phone call from a movie director who wants to hire you for making the sound effects of his next blockbuster. I'm not sure. We'll see. Know that. Just a little fun question. Which repair tasks are more likely to cause you to get injured except for sinks? Anytime I pry something, sometimes when you are prying something with a crowbar or pry bar, the end will pop out and then this hand might get smashed against the wall. So anytime I'm like exerting a lot of force with a pry bar or even pulling a nail out with a hammer, that's when I'm most likely to get injured. That's why I always wear gloves. From Lolly Lolly, thanks for your answer, Bob. No problem. Ralph, the chainsaw was indeed close to an original motor. Well done. Yeah, chainsaws, there's even more safety equipment for chainsaws. There's a visor. There's special pants you can wear that will stop the chainsaw from cutting you. It's important to wear protective gear when using a chainsaw. Michael, hello, Bob. Do you know how to weld? I learned stick welding and a bit from a pipeline crew that camped on our farm once. By the way, what's the difference between a farmer and welder? The welder knows he can't farm. So yes, I do know how to weld. I do own a welder. I haven't used it for a long time. If I have any welding to do, and if it's portable, I go and see if Jen's dad can do it. He's a very good welder. Know that. When you were studying back then, Bob, did you know that you would work in construction during the semester breaks, or was that a spontaneous decision of yours? When I was 16, I got a summer job doing construction, and I worked for that person for a few summers, and then I worked for my uncle for a few summers. It was the best paying job where you could get the most hours as a summer, like as a student worker. So I could work 9.5 hours a day and I could work Saturdays. And so there was lots of work. I was good at it. My uncle had a business and a friend of mine worked for someone. So initially I worked for the same boss as my friend. It wasn't spontaneous. It was very calculated. I paid like $3 an hour more than any other job. Freddie Wolf, by the way, the Paralympics open ceremony will take place August 28th, and the games will last till September 8th. I hope that they will be as amazing that the former one was. Thanks for all, Bob. Yes, and thanks again to everyone in France for hosting the Olympics and the Paralympics. Hopefully everything goes well. Know that says thanks for your answer. No problem. Let's get another question on the screen. And it's weird when I switch, it doesn't pop up right away. And then all of a sudden it does pop up. Or do I have to go? Oh, that's what I have to do. From Haki. Did you want to be an engineer when you were young? Because you are very familiar with tools and mechanical things, I guess. Have a great day. No, that never really interested me. Maybe an architect a little bit, but not an engineer. I like fixing things and building things. but not enough for it to be my job. From Tommy, I'm going to arrive in Canada next week. Very cool. In Canadian culture, how could we get a part-time job? Should I go directly to the business and ask for this? Look for help wanted signs close to where you are living. So often a business will put a sign in the window that says help wanted, and it means they are hiring. And then the other option would be there might be a job bank or a community job center near you, and they might have a list of jobs that you could look for. From the chat, Key Park says, hi, Bob. Would you always organize your tools or just put them out in your garage? I try to organize them, but as I mentioned before, I'm not that good at keeping things organized. It's very tricky. Oops. Adam, hello, Bob. In Canada, the students can use their electronic tools in school. In my country, the government wants to ban the electronic tools in school for students. Thanks. In my school and in most schools, I think you're talking about phones, right? In my school, if you're in a class where you're learning to make videos, you can have your phone. In most other classes, you can't have your phone. That's kind of been that way for a few years now at my school, and other schools are starting to do that as well. You can use your phone at lunchtime. We might ban them. We might ban them completely at some point, but so far it's okay to use them in your free time. Okay, let's see here. Let me turn off members only chat, and we will get back to the lesson in a moment. Let me do this. Let me check to see if there are any last members questions. John Wedge says, hey Bob, by the way, I'll soon be using tools to set up the crib and children's things. Yes. It's handy when you buy things like that. Sometimes they come with a little toolkit, so you have all the tools that you need to actually do it. Okay, where did we leave off, everyone? Were we on chisel? I think we were. Let me have another sip of water, and then we will get started on the lesson again. An axe. An axe is used to chop down, to cut. It's a very difficult tool to use. Like a chainsaw is easier to use than an axe. Sorry, an axe is easy to learn to use, but it's very physically demanding. Like you need a lot of muscles to use an axe, but you can use an axe to chop down a tree. You can use an axe to cut up some logs, whatever you need to do. A level. When you build things, you want them to be square. So you use a square to make 90 degrees, but you also want them to be level. What we mean by level is if you hang a picture on the wall and it might be a little crooked, you could use a level. It has a little bubble inside of air in liquid. And as you move the picture with the level on top, eventually the bubble will move between two lines, and then you know it's perfectly level. So again, I'm trying to use my hands here, crooked, and right in the middle, level. And you would use a tool like this to make sure things are level. It's called a level. You use it to level things. Drill, cordless drill, and you use it to drill or to make a hole. I picked a really bad picture though, because this guy's actually using the drill to put screws in. He's not drilling a hole. But hey, if you watch Jen's video that's coming out this Sunday, I do drill some holes in that. But you would just call it a drill or a cordless drill. So you have drills that plug into the wall, but you have drills with batteries. So drill is the general term, and then cordless drill would be a drill that has a battery. Use it to drill, use it to make a hole. Obviously, you can also use it to put in screws if you need to. Jigsaw. So a slightly different kind of saw. The blade goes up and down really fast. In fact, it's similar in a way to, it's similar to a hacksaw in that sense. Although you can use it to cut wood if you need to. But a jigsaw is a very cool tool because as you cut, you can turn. When you use a circular saw or a power saw, you have to cut straight. But with a jigsaw, you can kind of like follow a curved line if you need to. A sander. We like things to be smooth when we build them out of wood, and sometimes even when it's made out of metal. A sander has sandpaper on it that's really like rough paper with actually has sand glued to it, and it moves really fast. So a sander would be like, so it's moving really, really fast in one direction or many directions. And it basically removes a tiny layer from the wood or metal to make it very, very smooth. And you use it to sand or to smooth. A ladder is used to climb. So if you need to get up somewhere, you would use a ladder to climb up, or to get up somewhere. Those would be all the words you could use. You can see this person, they leaned a ladder against the front of their house. Now they can climb the ladder to maybe paint or clean something or whatever they need to do. And then we have a step ladder. So this ladder is one piece. You need to lean it, trying to pretend that's the house. You need to lean it against the house. A step ladder you can set up, and then you can climb one side. So a step ladder is handy because you do not need to lean the step ladder against a wall. You can just simply set up the ladder and then climb the step ladder. By the way, we would just call this a ladder as well. Like if someone said to you, hey, can you grab that ladder? They don't always say step ladder. Unless there's two ladders, then you would want to specify which ladder. The step ladder, please. A vise. So a vise is a device. A vise is a device that's used to hold or to squeeze things. So when you have a vise, you can turn the end and then it comes together. And so you could put a piece of wood in and then tighten it to hold that piece of wood. And then you could drill something. You could drill the wood or cut the wood or pound things into the wood. You could do many, many different things. But a vise is used to hold or squeeze things. I do have a vise in my machine shed. It's very handy. A vise is a very handy tool to have. Sorry, I have a fly here. An anvil. So an anvil is something, it's just a big, heavy piece of hard metal that you can use when, like if you have a hammer and you want to flatten something, you would lay it on the anvil and then you would hit it repeatedly with the hammer. Maybe you want to bend something. You might put it on the anvil and then slowly hit it as you turn it to bend it. So an anvil, it doesn't actually do anything, but it's a surface that you use to shape or flatten or curve or bend something. I also have an anvil. It's the anvil my dad bought many, many years ago. It's huge. It's very cool. I'll make a video at some point showing you my machine shed and you will see the anvil. A wheelbarrow. A wheelbarrow is used to wheel things around. If I fill my wheelbarrow with stone, I could say to my son, hey, can you wheel that behind the barn and dump it? Oh, you also dump a wheelbarrow. So you can wheel and then dump. Hopefully you're understanding my actions there. So a wheelbarrow is a little cart with one wheel on the front and two handles on the back, and then a place to put stuff. And you can use it to wheel things to different places on your property. You can use it to carry things. Let's say you had a lot of branches that fell off a tree. You could chop up the branches with your chainsaw and put them in your wheelbarrow, and then you could wheel them to a different place, and then you could dump them. A paintbrush and a paint roller. You use a paintbrush to paint or to brush. You use a paint roller to paint or to roll. So if you don't like the color of the walls in your house, you can use a paintbrush to paint the walls. You can use the paintbrush to brush on some paint. Maybe I should add the word on to that verb. Or you might use a paint roller. A paint roller is just really wide and it turns. So you can put more paint on than you can with a paintbrush. We usually paint the corners and around the doors with a paintbrush, and then we usually roll paint on the rest of the room with a paint roller. It's just faster that way. A shovel. So a shovel, there are many different types of shovels. You use a shovel, to dig. So the difference being, if I have a pile of stone, I can shovel the stone into the wheelbarrow, okay? But if I'm out in my yard, I can dig a hole in the ground, okay? So shovel means simply to move stuff. Like you can shovel some stone from one place to another, but when you dig, you're actually making a hole in the ground. That would be the difference between to shovel and to dig. To rake, or a rake. So this is a rake. We might call this a garden rake. By the way, this is a leaf rake or fan rake. We would call this a garden rake or just a rake. You use it to rake things. Like when you pull a rake, it kind of gathers whatever's on the surface. You can also use it to level things out. So in my job right now, I'm using a rake to level out stone. Okay, but you could rake stone, you could rake dirt, you can, whenever you need to just rake or gather or level something, you can use a rake. And then a leaf rake or fan rake. This is a special type of rake used mostly for cleaning up leaves. People often in this part of the world will rake their leaves in the fall. When you have a rake like this, it's very light. You could not use this for stone. It's plastic and it's not very strong, but it is perfect for raking leaves. If you need to rake leaves, that is the kind of rake you would want, a leaf rake or fan rake. Hey, one last picture. Let's make this bigger. So yes, this is my current project. How big can I make this? I'll put that in the middle of the screen. That's where I'm going to be today. That's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go outside and I'm going to finish that job right after this live stream. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. I do have help, by the way. A couple of my kids will be helping. And we're using the tractor to move the pavers, not the wheelbarrow. So it's actually not too hard. We just load them in the tractor and drive them over. But anyways, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you were able to learn some things. Oh, wait, do I have to do questions yet? What am I doing? Let me get what's left here. Okay, 3 more questions. Hobart, hi, Bob. Have a nice day. I never have been a farmer in childhood. Used a lot of tools to plant the plants, but I don't know the name of the tools in English. Oh, I see. I was a farmer when I was a kid, and I used a lot of tools to plant the plants, but I don't know the name of the tools in English. Well, hopefully you know some of them now. There are a lot more gardening and farming tools. I could do another lesson on that at some point. We'll see. Oleg, hi, what is the difference between scissors, pruners, and snips? So for me, scissors cut paper, pruners cut branches and stems of plants, and snips are used to cut metal. So if you have like really thin metal, you can use snips. We sometimes call them tin snips. So for me, in my part of the world, in English, scissors cut paper and other paper type things, paper, string, like you would use scissors in a house. Pruners are for plants and snips are for cutting really, really thin metal. From Bridget, do you also need an examination or a certificate to cut huge trees and how to handle safely the motor saw? As a farmer, I am allowed to have a chainsaw and chop down a tree. If I go to chop down a tree in town, I think I would need to have some, I think there are laws. I'm not 100% sure though, but as a farmer, I can do whatever I want. I am free to do what I want. From Ismail, hi Bob, could you tell me please, is entranceway used only for the area inside a building's entrance, or can it also refer to the space outside the front door? Thank you. So, interestingly enough, if you look at that door, I call that the entrance to my house. I could also call it the entranceway. When I go inside that door, I'm standing in the entranceway to my house. So it can be used for me. I actually use it for both the outside and inside. It's by the front entrance. That can mean, if I say my keys are by the front entrance, It can mean inside or outside, but close to the door. But I would call this the entranceway. Oh, the package was by the entranceway, or the package is in the entranceway. Both would work for me. It might be different in other parts of the English-speaking world, but that's how it works for me. Hey, that's it. I'm going to say bye. Bye, everyone. I hope you have a good day. Bye to John Wedge, Pedro, Haki, Key Park, Fatima, Os, Vitor, Jazang, Lolly Lolly. I know if I scroll back, bye to Freddie Wolf, Know That, Oleg, G Gorilla Runner. Lots of fun names there. Know That says, thanks for the great lesson, Bob. It was awesome hanging around with you. I wish you and your family a wonderful day and a pleasant weekend. Enjoy it and remember to relax a bit. Oh, and I think I will do that, Know That, but I think you also... Know That also further back said, could you give my regards to Dave the Canadian, Bob? It would be cool to write him here again sometime, but I'm sure he's super busy. I do not see Dave very often. I haven't seen Dave for a long time, but if I do run into him, I will pass that on. Let's see here. Michael says, thank you for the amazing lesson. No problem. Leo says, bye. CK Chen. Steric says, thanks. Ismail says, thank you, Bob. Thanks for the lesson, says Fatima. Bye, says Haki. Yes, bye to everyone. Have a good weekend. This was fun. Remember, this lesson will come out in a shorter version in a couple days. You should watch it. It's good because it helps you remember everything you have heard and everything you have learned. Repetition is important for remembering vocabulary. So you don't have to watch the whole lesson, but you should probably listen to it. And if you can understand it, you can even speed it up a bit. That's helpful as well. But yes, do that. And I will see you Tuesday with another English lesson. And if you didn't watch this past Tuesday's lesson, I'm in a barrel. You should go watch it. It's on prepositions of place. I tried to make it as funny and entertaining as possible. I think you will enjoy it. In fact, I will get you a link for that. Give me 1 second here. Where do I go for that? I click here, I click here, I click here. I click here, and then there we go. Now I think I did it right. Here we go. Here is... I have a different keyboard here because we set this computer up for Jen to edit. It's about... prep, so you can probably hear the loud keyboard. I can't type at all. It's like one of my kids' old gaming keyboards. It has really loud keys. So, but anyways, I should finish this off. Bye everybody. Have a good day. Kevin says, please make a video about the difference between would, could, and make. I will try sometime, but that gets a little tricky. Oh, and John Wedge says, and follow Jen's channel as well. That is, I'll get a link for that as well if people are interested. Let's see here. Jen's flower farming channel. I'm going overtime now. Don't you guys have to get to work or enjoy yourself? So there you go. If you want an English lesson on prepositions of place, you can see the link right there. I will pin it. And if you are interested in Jen's channel about flower farming, it's also linked right there. I'll put that in again. If you go to Jen's channel, only go if you're interested in farming and flowers. You won't learn a lot of English. It's a lot more beauty than it is actual talking. Jen likes to show the process of growing flowers, and some people have found it quite enjoyable to follow along. But anyways, and I'll put a link to Jen's channel below in the comments as well. So anyways, thanks for watching, everybody. See you. I'm going to go work. I think it'll take me 4 hours. I'll post a picture on the community page when I'm done. Let me see. I'll see. Maybe I will. We'll see. Have a good weekend. Bye.